Tim, like a bit more confidence about what you can say about paint, because it's a complex subject, Tim, isn't it?
It's a very complex subject. Yeah. Morning, everybody. Mike, thanks for inviting us to talk here today. You touched on something with the training side of things. In the, well, I say small craft, so anything from a little rowboat all the way up to 250-metre super yacht. There is no professional training for applicators. So, as Mike said, we brought in our MCI about 9 years ago. We're now working on bringing project managers and things like that into the fold. But you, as small craft surveyors, are the communication link at the moment, as I see it, of getting this information into the marketplace and helping to share the message. So it's great that you've all given up your time to come today. So a little bit about me. 28 years in the maritime industry, 13 of those have been with AkzoNobel in paint and coatings. I work for R&D, research and development, in the yacht division of AkzoNobel. And we've got our application research centre in Hedge End, and there we are the experts in how you put paint on the surface, surface preparation, equipment, absolutely everything technical to do with paint is where we make a mess all day. Registered Marine Coating Inspector, NACE 2. I'm a technical member of the IMS, and for my sins, I'm also have a bit of health and safety in my job role as well. So, Mike asked me to talk about some of the industry hot topics at the moment, and those are colour and maintenance. Okay, and then to sort of conclude all that, we're going to look at talk about some inspection equipment that we've got to use these days. The days of yachts being typically blue or white is long gone. We look at the range of colours that we now have in the automotive world, and our yacht customers demand that the same visual appearance that the cars are getting. So the world of colour is getting ever more complex. Okay. A lot of people go, I want this colour on my boat because it's the same colour as my car, I want it to match. Or they've seen a little detailing stripe somewhere and they want their boat in that colour, but don't understand the complexities of applying that, product on a large area. And how suitable that colour might be for a large area. But also, we're seeing a lot of boats where the radomes for the sat phone, etc., antenna arrays and aerials want to be painted. People want them in the same colour as their boat, and they don't appreciate the impact of what a coating can do to the performance of that equipment. Okay, so when we're talking about special effects coatings, we're talking about coatings that have got metallic in them. They've got aluminium flake in there, or pearlescence that have got a mica flake in them. Metallic are really bad for electronic devices because all it does is effectively radiate the signal back into the device, into the antenna, or stop it actually getting in there in the first place. So we have to develop not only the metallic colours, but we then have to make hybrid colours so people can get the same aesthetic appearance on all parts of their boat without destroying the performance of them. And quite often, boats that were painted in metallics maybe 6-7 years ago, people are still moaning that their sat phone doesn't work properly, and it's because the domes are covered in metal flake. we've seen this in our daily lives, hopefully, if you've been out doing small boat surveying, especially on aged gel coat. Every year, the polishing brigade come out sort of October to March, and they get their compounds and their mops out, and they religiously go down the side of the boat and bring its luster and shine back again. And we're all aware that all that is doing is over time is degrading the surface and wearing it away, to the point where we could polish a boat in October and by the end of November it's losing its gloss, it's losing that luster, we're losing the distinction of image in the surface, and we're back to how we were at the end of the season. And that's not only caused by mechanical damage, but it's also caused by environmental damage as well. So the biggest one being UV. There's a brilliant picture shortly of a wooden boat which highlights both really, really well. And a few other things that can cause issues is insufficient DFT or dry film thickness of products that have been applied. Okay. What we generally find is boats get to about the 10-year point, and then people start to paint them because it becomes impractical to revitalize the gel coat anymore, and then they go off it and get painted. We had an instance a couple of years ago where the paint was falling off a boat in big sheets, and what happened was, upon inspection, it had an epoxy primer underneath. What happens to epoxy when it gets exposed to UV? It chalks. Okay. When they painted the boat, they hadn't put enough top coat on there, so it was really, really low film thickness. The UV rays from the sun were getting through, were actually degrading the epoxy underneath, and that was causing the paint system to fail. Okay. So I'm not going to go into paint specifications here, but if you ever read a paint specification from a paint supplier, then there's a reason why we specify a minimum film thickness, and that's so that we have the longevity out of the system when we have the most protection. We've also got the impact of cleaning materials, and I'm going to come on to that in more detail in just a second. For those of you online, hopefully you can see this. This document has just been released by AkzoNobel. We've been a major stakeholder in publishing this, and it's been written to help surveyors, paint managers, owners reps understand colour. Okay. It's a massive topic, and it's really complicated, and even I admit that I don't understand it fully. We have specialist laboratories that work on colour development, but this document is now available. If you're an AkzoNobel member, you can download it from their document library. If not, you can join and then download it. This I'm not going to leave here, but I will share it. So if you want to have a cursory glance over it while we're talking, then please do. Why was it necessary to produce such a document? There's no hopefully the PC doesn't run out of battery. As I said, there is no professional training for applicators in the yachting world. Everything is done by a kind of an apprenticeship. You join a company, and then you get taught by the person who was taught by somebody else who was taught by somebody else. So information has become very diluted over the years. And as I said earlier, it's what we're trying to do now is upskill everybody again, and we need your help in doing that. So yeah.
Yeah, if it's close family.
Today's. Some of you who've come on training courses may have seen these panels before. Everyone who's online, I'll show you in a minute. This is the same product. This is the same colour out of the tin, and the only thing that has changed is how it has been applied. Okay, it's been applied by the same person using the same spray gun. All that's changed is how they've used that equipment to achieve the colour. Mike, would you mind just sharing those rooms?
You've got 10 shades of grey there.
Yeah.
Not big.
So one really key important thing that's written in this document is if you're going to get involved with the painting of a boat and the acceptance of a painted finish, it's really important that an acceptance panel is sprayed at the beginning. It is measured and agreed by everybody that that is the standard that you that we need to achieve. Okay, so that we don't end up with a situation where we have got 50 shades of grey and every shade in theory is correct. You know, it's the same tin of paint. There was nothing wrong with that. As I said, it's just how it was applied. And if you look on them, it does mention in some cases the differences.
So a production boat, 50 hulls produced.
Yeah.
Using the same process could result in 50 different shades.
Absolutely. And if the big boat world now, 70 meters and upwards, we're tending to find that rather than an area being painted and then another area being painted, they're painting the whole thing at once. Okay, and you've got a team of 50, 60 painters and their potmen all spraying at the same time. Now, if their equipment is all set up differently and their spraying technique is different, you're potentially going to end up with a boat that looks like that set of panels. Okay. So what we do find happens is that the boat will be finished by one or two painters. They'll put the majority of the coatings on with a team, and then a group of painters will go and finish the boat because they know through practice that they paint consistently the same, and therefore the finish is going to be consistent. I'm going to talk a little bit more about colour in a minute. But has anybody got any questions on this before we go on?
You use robots to paint boats.
So we're actually just about to install a robot at our centre in Southampton. In the production boat building market, especially in America, aluminium sort of sports boats that they build out there, you know, a single manufacturer is building 30,000 of these a year. And the painting process is the single most time-consuming process in the production of the boat. Those boats are moving over to robotic application because it means we can use faster drying coatings. In the rest of the maritime world, outside the production world, one boat is never the same as another. So the complexities of having to scan that boat, you need to laser scan it so that the computer knows where the surface is too costly compared to getting people to do it properly the first time around. But we are working on it. Processes are moving that way. The super yacht world is slightly ahead of the. We categorize markets as do it yourself, do it for me, and then super yacht. The super yacht market is looking into robotics. The problem we've got at the moment, as the boats get bigger, the dock space is getting smaller because no one's built any new docks yet. So quite a few of the big yards in Germany, we know that when they next invest in building a new dock, because boats are just going to get bigger, then they're going to then look at the robotic side of it. But it's massively complicated. And if we look at some of the professional applicators that are in the handle, for example, it's just not cost effective for them to even look at the technology. It's still cheaper to put men onto the job rather than let a robot do it. Any more? I'll let you go, David.
One from online. Andrew Edmund has asked, are all colours equally susceptible to the variations that described?
If we look at cars that are on the road up until maybe about 10 years ago, colours that used to suffer the most were reds and yellows, and colours at that end of the spectrum. We've all seen, you know, the 10-year-old Ford Escort that's just lost its colour completely. So yeah, reds, yellows, colours at that end of the spectrum are really susceptible to degradation. And it all comes down to the colour platform that's used to make the paint in the first place. So a lot of our products now, we're changing how we utilise colour and introduce colour into the paint, and we're developing much better and longer lasting pigments and surfaces. So yeah, reds and yellows. They're also more difficult to apply because the opacity is not very good. So if you're putting a dark blue down, you might need 3 coats to get full opacity. But if you're using red or yellow, then you're probably going to need 5 or 6, if not more. Right then. So, as it says, the most well-maintained yacht in the harbour is the envy of everybody, and I think it's every boat owner's dream to have the best looking boat in the marina. Whether it's a reality or not depends completely on how much time they've got to spend or how much money they've got to pay someone to do it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the most newly painted or newly produced gel coat boat that looks the best. A boat, some of you may know it, it's a Swan 46 called Reindeer that's still prominent in the racing world, was painted in Albert 15 years ago, and apart from some mechanical damage, the paintwork looks as good as it did when it was applied, and that's because it's looked after. So, your typical super yacht, and we class super yacht as anything over 24 meters, because it's sort of generally agreed now that anything over about 150, we're kind of calling it a mega yacht. But yeah, super yacht, anything over 24 meters. Some of them probably get washed every single day of the year. Okay. That's the crew's job. If there's nothing to do, go and clean the boat. And the problem is there's no standardization in cleaning practices. You know, no one teaches us how to use washing up liquid, do they? Fairy don't give us a training bulletin on how to use it. And the same applies to an awful lot of the cleaning products that we see available in chandleries and in the commercial marketplace. Quick show of hands. How many people have read the data, the technical data sheet for a cleaning product they've used on their boat? Or a boat that you've been involved with? You have? And no one else?
I worked on two deals.
That's a rarity, and it's nice to hear. How many of us have read the safety data sheet for a cleaning product we use? It's probably an even lower percentage. It's just generally assumed that we should all know how to do it, and we don't necessarily understand the consequences of how it can affect us. Everyone does it their own way, but is it the right way? So when it's done right, the effects are immediately visible, and it prolongs the life of the coating on the boat, whether it be gel coat or paint. I consider gel coat a coating. It's a liquid product with a pigment in it that goes onto a boat. It's just put in the mold before it was made, rather than afterwards. And you can damage a coating, whether it be new or old, very, very quickly as well, just by doing something incorrectly. Polyurethane, polyester urethane top coats. Because forgive those who already know, polyurethane can be used to cover polyesters and acrylics. Okay, so it's important we know which product we're referring to, because polyester urethane paints, if you imagine the structure of that paint as chopped strand fiberglass, okay, when we sand through or polish through that resin-rich layer on the surface, what we do is we expose lots of strands of fiberglass, don't we? And it doesn't matter how much we work with that, we're never ever going to get that perfectly flat and polished and looking great again. With an acrylic, if you imagine a ball pool, if we take away a layer of balls, we're left with another layer of balls again. Okay, so polyester top coats are not repairable, in that you can repair them, but they will be constant maintenance to keep them looking nice. Once you've damaged that surface, you'll find 2 or 3 months down the line, it will start to degrade quite quickly. Whereas an acrylic urethane, they are polishable and they are repairable, and they're designed to do that. What that means is that they are marginally softer. They've still got really, really high scratch resistance, but they are softer. And there's a bit of a misconception in the industry that polyesters are really hard and acrylics are really soft. If you were to do a pencil hardness test on them or something like that, the results are fairly comparable. So one is softer than the other, but they're marginally softer. So if you get your cleaning wrong, then the results can also be immediate in what you see. Okay, this blue boat, the transom of this blue boat, is a perfect example of when cleaning a boat with the wrong products on a hot day just destroys the surface. Okay, and as I'll come to in a minute, what it actually does is it ends up etching the surface. The white picture on the left, we spent probably about 4 years investigating this problem. People were calling it leopard print, water spotting. There were loads of different names that came up in the industry for this. And it's, as always, it's the paint's fault. It's always the paint's fault. 95% of the time, it's not. And I spent ages in Barcelona looking at the side of this 70-metre boat, and the owner's like, well, sorry, not the owner, the captain was like, well, we need to get on this boat and go here, and then you can see it, but you can't see it if you stand here, and etc. So it's like one of the big problems we have is actually identifying the issue. Once you've identified it, then we can move forward. And on both these cases, this is caused by using the incorrect products in the incorrect weather. And there's another great example of, so in your super yacht days, how often did you clean that teak deck?
Once again.
Really? Okay. This is a perfect example of what caused the issues on that previous picture. Everyone starts cleaning at the top of the boat. They use all their chemicals, and then they get the hose pipe out and they wash it, and it all goes down over the side of the boat, and it's always in the blazing sunshine, and what the chemicals etch the surface, and then the sun bakes it all in, and it causes lots of problems. So, great example. If you're going to clean teak with teak cleaners, do it when it's wet and miserable, so that you get the boat rinsed off really well. This was that picture I was referring to earlier. Where we've got the wooden deck of a boat, where we've got UV degradation to the varnish coating, and we've also got we're going to have mechanical abrasion on that, and you can actually see if the coatings was left to do its own thing, actually it still looks really good. Here's the polishing brigade I was referring to earlier. Apologies for the quality of these pictures on the screen. They're not come up very good. Does everybody know what I mean by DOI, or distinction of image? No. Okay. There's often misconception, misunderstanding about the difference between gloss and distinction of image. Okay, so gloss is how reflective the surface is. Okay, how much light it's going to reflect back to a gloss meter or to our eye. Okay, so that's how shiny the surface is. Distinction of image is the quality of the reflection. Okay, because we can have a really shiny surface that's got lots of texture in it that can have gloss that's really high. But it's got really poor distinction of image, okay? And the two are often confused. Okay? People say, oh, it's got really bad gloss, where actually it's got really great gloss, but because it's got lots of texture in the coating, the distinction of image is really bad. Okay? And when people start measuring it with various instruments, you then get conflict of interest over opinion. As industry professionals, it's really important to try and build an understanding of what's good and what's not, so that we can start to spread the word in our daily interactions with people in the industry. And that all starts with understanding, to a certain extent, a bit of the chemistry side of things, and what the pH is. Before I started working with AkzoNobel, if someone said to me, the gel coat on my boat is really stained, what shall I clean it with? I would have gone, powder gel coat cleaner, oxalic acid, brilliant. Wipe it on, leave it for 20 minutes, hose it off, hull looks great, stick some polish on it, absolutely perfect. But all that oxalic acid is doing is slowly degrading the surface and making it more porous, which then over time allows it to attract more dirt. And all we're doing is eventually killing the surface, and that applies to paint as much as gel coat. And a lot of these products, if you go into a Chandley, say they're paint safe, but they're really not. And we've done an awful lot of testing. My colleague Matt has, as you can see here, most teak restorers and deck brighteners and metal polishes, they're, you know, to do the job, they've got something nasty in it, so they're all really acidic. And detergent and degreasers at the other end are a really strong alkali, so they're not nice to the exterior coatings of a boat. That's really strange. The presentation is out of sync with my notes. Never mind. So that, if we go back to that picture of that white boat where we saw all the water lines down the side of it, what that defect has now been agreed on as its name is water spotting. Okay. And what happens is we have a boats cleaned, or it could be environmental contamination in rain and things like this if we're in a particularly harsh area. Barcelona in particular is really bad. And we get this water droplet on the surface, and then we get the sun on it. What the sun does is it amplifies the strength of the light through the water, and it etches the surface, and we end up with the start of the defect forming like this on the surface. Okay. And then when we wash the boat again, these defects just increase from that point onwards. And they start to enlarge. Okay, we've all seen this on winches, we must have done, yeah, or on bright work on the boat. And unless it's cleaned immediately, you'll never ever get rid of these marks in the surface. They'll always be there. And that was the cause of these boats looking like this. It was all down to how they were, what was being used to clean them, and the time of the day when they were being cleaned. It was, they'd have probably escaped a bit more if they'd have done it earlier in the morning before the sun came out, or later in the day when the sun had disappeared and we'd lost a lot of the power of UV. Fortunately, in the big boat world, people understand it now. It's taken us a while to get there, so there's a bit more appreciation of what to do and what not to do. This hasn't quite translated down to the small craft world yet. And in the small craft world, so the boats that we see up the River Hatboro as an example, quite often those boats are left for much longer periods of time between cleaning. So then what tends to happen is people then tend to use things that are more aggressive because there's more contamination and dirt and everything else on the boat. So they might not get cleaned as often, but when they are cleaned, they might get cleaned with harsher materials, or, for example, if they're cleaning a teak deck, instead of just giving it a light brush and going across the grain so you don't lift the fibres up, you know, they've got some really strong teak cleaner on there, and then they're going with the grain to get down into that wooden surface. So they're damaging the teak on their boat to achieve the aim of getting it clean. So these are all including the international product in there. These are all the commonly found things in Force 4 or Marine Superstore or Aladdin's Cave, etc. And they're really good at doing what they're designed to do, but they're absolutely no friend of a gel coat or a painted surface. So as I said, hopefully I've just given you a little bit of knowledge so that as industry experts, we can now share this with the people that we come into contact with and hopefully better educate them about the products that they're using on their boat. So, any questions on that bit?
Just an observation from me, actually. So we had one of your colleagues came to present in our waterways training day last year. I forget his name. And he said, rather like you, he said, "Do you read the small print?" He says, "Anybody read the back of it in a pen?" And he said to the audience, "How long would you stir your paint for before you apply it?" And some guy said 10 seconds. Somebody said, no, 15 seconds, 20 seconds. I forget what he said, but it was something like 2.5 minutes or something. 2.5 minutes. I mean, I've never seen a paint. But it's interesting, isn't it? We don't read what we should.
So you mentioned the dirt. What is actually removing? I mean, is it algae and salt?
So what are we trying to remove from the surface initially, or what's creating the problem?
Yeah, from the first place, I mean, it's dirt on it, but a whole mixture of things. They're constantly removing it, surely.
Yeah, it's salt. It's everyday detritus that lands on the boat. You know, boats in the handle, if the wind was in the wrong direction, would get all the soot from falling when that was operational, and or the power station was, and to a certain extent, there's still some stuff comes over from the oil refinery, so we've got all those sorts of petrochemicals and what have you. Barcelona is really bad for metallic dust contamination in the air, and you get a lot of surface rust caused on paint and gel coat just because of what's in the atmosphere and what's landing on it. It gets wet overnight, dries, and then you end up with problems like that. Okay.
Do you have anything to do with wrapping boats? Have you come on and you know anything about that as opposed to applying packaging?
I have absolutely no knowledge of wrapping boats at all.
All right.
Apart from the fact that it usually comes off in the middle of the ocean when you don't want it to. And
yeah, I just wondered if you come across a reaction to paint, that painted coating or something. Okay.
The life, what I do know is the lifespan of a wrap is nowhere near as long as a painted surface. Yeah. Maybe I should add actually with All Grip products. That's everyone aware of the All Grip brand, yeah. So that's the professional market of AkzoNobel for the yacht industry. You know, we don't recommend polishing All Grip top coat, but we know that if you use a polymer sealer over it every 3 or 4 months, then the gloss retention levels and the quality of the surface is significantly longer than if you don't. So there's some really easy things that you can do to protect a coating, but that is a whole topic in itself, and it's one of those things you're better off doing. We've run some training days for the IMS before. Happy to do it again if that's people want more information on a particular subject. And polishing and paint care is definitely half a day.
Will you be covering any more about how you report on what you've seen in terms of the finish and so on? Because that was interesting about the DOI and gloss, for example.
No, I'm not. That falls under kind of the RMCI course, because inspecting a painted surface is quite a complex process. It could be as simple as looking at a top coat and measuring the gloss and the distinction of image, etc.
I was just thinking in terms of what you mentioned, like what you expect to see in a report.
Often we don't see any reference to scratches or abrasions. So if you're looking at a hull that's maybe 15 years old, it can't be without some scratches and abrasions. And it's just sometimes it is, well, we must be brand new there. Then you read on and think, oh gosh, it's 15 years old. So just a line that says scratches and abrasions were noted.
Yeah.
It just covers you as a surveyor. Otherwise, somebody says, well, hang on, you didn't see this, and we stood at yeah, where it was actually, doing practical training, yeah, for my colleagues, actually, who was taking that to this area. And we were standing on the side of the boat, looking down the side of the boat, and there was just my indentation. And it looked like it had been in repair. But when you stood and looked at it like that, you wouldn't notice it.
Yeah.
But again, you look down the angle and you look at the side of the hole, and the feet haven't quite been done correctly.
Yeah.
Which is no.
Yeah.
You might make a recommendation, but you were just letting everybody know that you value for that. But just saying it's got a good luster doesn't really mean much.
Sure.
And we're not going to talk about tick box reports today, but we are seeing more and more tick box reports, which frankly we are really concerned about. And I saw one very recently, and it said condition of hull coating, acceptable, good, either good, acceptable, or not acceptable. And they tick 4. That's it, you tick 4. So how does that tell the reader of that report?
Yeah.
When you see that in time, so a few descriptive words, just to flesh out, if it doesn't look quite good enough. It doesn't look like.
So to follow on from that, if I'm just going to do a no inspection equipment visual assessment of a boat, then I'm looking for consistent colour over the whole boat, especially if it's new. I'm looking for a consistent colour. I'm then looking at the surface texture. So that's orange peel. Okay, and that can be created by what's under the painted surface. So due to the preparation in the sanding, it could be caused by sand scratch, or it can be caused by application by people using the wrong equipment or the wrong choice of solvent. But we're just looking at the texture in the paint, which is the orange peel. Okay, and then from that we can get an idea of distinction of image. And if you haven't got a meter that's costing you £10,000 or whatever, just use your watch and take a picture of it, and what's the reflection of your watch in the surface like, or a ruler or something that you can use as a representative to see that reflection. And then I'm looking at the sort of the quality of what's on there. So as Mike touched on, is there any damage to the surface? If there are any major sort of chunks missing, then a really simple test you can do is a penknife adhesion test, and just use the corner of your knife and just try and pick at the coating, and that will give you a really easy and quick assessment of how well adhered that paint is to the underlying substrate. Just try and lift the corner.
Dave, do we have any more questions? I can see there's 5 online.
If you want to read it all down, I'll read it again.
Oh, okay. Can we read those questions again?
What do you know or think about alcohol fatigue cleaning and data sheet does not give it pH? Andrew, I don't know specifically to that product. If I was just going to do a rough and ready test, then I'd just use some pH test paper that you can get from swimming pool suppliers, something like that, just to rough and ready. Stick the paper in the product and see what happens. If it's not listed on the data sheet, then that would be a good test to do that. Can I suggest what products should be used for cleaning gel coat? I'm not an expert on gel coat, so I'm going to slope my shoulders on this one, I'm afraid. And I would talk to a expert in gel coat. If you want to know what to do with paint, I will tell you the answer, but yeah, apologies for not answering that question. Are all colours equally susceptible to the variations just described? Yes, they are. As I mentioned, colour platforms are changing. So what we're seeing is a much more longer lasting surface finish that we're achieving with the paint. Right, have I got all those? If I've missed any questions from anybody, then highlight them to me and we'll come back to them shortly. Okay. We get quite geeky with equipment when it comes out, and the reason is surveyors in the super yacht world, when a new piece of equipment comes out, they get sold it by the manufacturer and off they go, and then start quoting an awful lot of information that the rest of the industry doesn't understand yet. So what we try and do is we try and get our hands on this kit, and I know other paint manufacturers do as well, so that we can fully understand it and start building a track record of data so that we've got something to benchmark. And that's really key with inspection equipment, is what data have you got to benchmark the answers or summaries that you're providing in reports. So the TAMS machine is something that we've recently acquired. If we were to see this on the surface of a painted finish, it looks like a dimple, which could be caused by, there could be surface contamination there and it has flowed back over again. Okay, it could be caused by solvent pop, or there are any number of reasons. What the TAMS allows us to do is take a much more in detail look at that. So it's a piece of kit that fits in your hand like that, and it measures a 2.5 by 1 centimetre rectangle, and this is its picture of that dimple. Doesn't really tell us a great deal more, but we can manipulate that image, we can turn it, and when we look at the underside of it, I haven't got a laser pointer, apologies. What you can start seeing in the middle is a bit of a crater going on, which you can see actually in this image here. We get a much better understanding of this dimple and what's going on with it. And rather than what we could deduce from looking at that picture was that was caused by an explosion. It split like a volcano, and that was caused by a solvent popping out of the surface as the paint was drying. Okay. So it allows us to dig into a much greater detail surface defects and understand their causes. Okay. So the TAMS is out there now. Again, it's
sorry, is that because it cured too fast?
yes, the surface had cured, solvent was trapped inside and it tried to escape, and that's what left the crater on the surface.
Do you put it in more thinness? Is that response?
So the cause of that could be that the solvent that they used was too fast, so it evaporated too quickly, the surface cured, and it left the solvent trapped underneath the paint film, and it had to come out somewhere, and that's what happened. you want one of these, it's gonna cost you about £15,000.
Incredible.
There's a lot of information in the Iconia colours guide about torches. Torches cause untold problems when we're talking about paint, and it's all to do with the light spectrum that is emitted by them. Okay, if you're doing a general survey looking at a surface for defects, then a standard LED flashlight is a really great piece of kit. But if we're going to use this for looking at colour, especially metallics and pearlescence, then this is really the wrong piece of kit. And we see often people using their torches on their phones. And again, it's really the wrong piece of kit. And if I get a report that says, oh, I've inspected this surface with this LED flashlight and the colour's wrong, that it'll get sent back again because it's not worth the paper it's written on. And the reason is, it's all to do with the wavelength that is emitted. So if we're doing an inspection of colour, then we must make sure that we're using a daylight lamp, and that is a light that emits all light frequencies. I couldn't find a picture of it. I saw it on How It's Made or something the other day, and they were working with some fabric, and they had this machine where they put these samples in and they changed the light, and if the colour of the object changed as they changed the lights, then it didn't pass their QC process, and it was really interesting to see. But you see it when you start to use a proper daylight lamp versus an LED torch on a painted surface. Because if we're using a halogen light, then the surface is going to be much redder in its appearance. If we're going to use this one, it's going to be blue. And if we're going to use that kind of light surface, so that's why these things are no good for doing paint inspections when we're talking about colour. You must have a daylight lamp. Okay. Does that make sense to everyone? Don't think I need to go on about that anymore, do I? So, even today, we've got a colour that we want our boat painted in or something. We go to the chandlers, or if we're doing a house, we go to the Dulux Decorator Centre or B&Q, and we get a colour card like this, colour swatch, that we then go through them all. We find the closest one and going, right, I want YSC 132, whatever colour it is, that's the closest one. The problem is, in the metallic colour range that we offer, there's 22,000 different colour choices. And that's not enough for people. They still want more. So we need to be able to much more dynamically measure colour, okay? And it might be something that you get asked to do. So it's important that you understand the equipment that's available. So this is the Colour Muse. It looks like a 35. It connects to an app on your phone, and you can download a colour database, and it will then, you take a little picture of the surface, and it will tell you the closest colour depending on the colour database that you've downloaded, and it will show you colours either side of that as well. So a really inexpensive piece of kit, they're only about £50, and you can keep in your back pocket. If someone goes, what colour's my boat, you can stick it on the surface and it will give you an idea. This one is a self-contained unit, does pretty much the same thing. This one's got a rail fan deck in it. So if I turn this on, You can have a quick play of this. You literally put it flat on the surface, press the fake picture button on the side, and yeah, just have a play. So these will give you the closest reference to known colours, okay? And they're reliant on you having downloaded a colour deck into the device in the case of the capture sync. And with the Colour Muse, you can just quickly change the settings in the app of what it's relating to. And then we've got this device here, which is more for a lab side of things, the automatic vision. So these are colour meters, okay? So all they do is provide a reference to a known colour. And they're only as accurate as, yeah, this is a pretty good match. Okay. If someone says, I want my boat the same colour as my Rolls Royce, and we need to be absolutely perfect with the colour, or if a boat's been painted for a period of time, there will be some degradation to the colour, okay? So therefore, we need to be able to match what the colour is now to be able to efficiently repair it. And that's when we need a slightly more complicated kit, like and it's called a spectrophotometer. And what it does is it gives you the actual coordinates of the colour from the colour globe. Okay? And that's this bit of kit here. Now this one is still being driven by Palm Pilot, which is shows how old this is, but yeah, this is still fully functional. It gets calibrated every year. I don't actually know how to drive this. I leave that to my colleague Matt because it's really complicated. But if we want to actually know what the actual colour is, then this is the kind of piece of kit we're going to have to use for that. If you want to have a look at this, please feel free, but I'm not going to pass it around the room. I'm going to leave it with. And something like that. The Colour Muse about 50 quid, the capture sync, we're looking about £150. And then again, we're into the tens of the thousands of pounds for that kind of stuff. But this is where we're getting to with colour, and this is how demanding our customers are being, which is why we're having to put so much time and energy into educating or re-educating people as well about colour. So, any questions on that?
Ceramic coatings.
Oh,
That was on the list. Have they changed substantially in the last 5 or 6 years? There was a period 2 or 3 years ago where instead of having things that painted, they're not painted. It was almost like really thin layer of varnish and it kind of started flaking.
yeah.
And I'm not seeing that so much now. I don't know if they've got better or people aren't doing it because they did that. I don't know.
There are ceramic coating manufacturers out there that are still pushing products into the yacht marketplace. From our experience, we've found that they cause unimaginable problems with paint because of the inability to paint over the top of them. And we've really pushed back and said, if you've got ceramic coating on your boat, then you need to liaise with the ceramic coating manufacturer about how you effectively remove that coating before, yeah, so to know that it's all gone for painting over the top of it.
You don't survive
No,
any.
no, absolutely not.
Right.
And ceramic coatings will provide you an immediate benefit in that they will make the boat look a bit better if it's tired. But you've got a very short lifespan with them, sort of 18 to 24 months, and then they just fall off a cliff. And actually, through accelerated exposure testing, we know that actually, if you look after a painted surface with the products that the paint manufacturers supply you, your gloss and surface quality will last significantly longer than if you use ceramic coatings. So,
Because they've been sold as protection,
yeah, we're actually on a painted surface, a polymer sealer, in the long term will be much more beneficial than paying a ceramic company thousands of pounds to cover your boat in it. So they're causing us problems, and they're causing every paint manufacturer problems. And a company has come up with a device that uses infrared technology that identifies if ceramic coating exists on the surface or not, but it's not got a big enough track record yet. So it's still a big hot topic that hasn't got enough answers yet.
Yeah, I mean, from the surveying point of view, the worry is you do a boat that looks nice and tidy, and a year later it's not like when they said you should have done. How do you know?
I think if you were writing a surveyor's report, you've got to write a statement, then, you know, something along the lines of there may be ceramic coating on this boat, but due to the conditions and I was unable to test it. You know where I'm kind of going with that kind of answer. You know, we couldn't look in the engine room because it was bolted down and we weren't able to get access. So further investigation would be required by a professional kind of thing. We can, yeah, that's how we need to look at how we would write a report. If I was doing an RMCR report on a surface and it had ceramic coating on it, or I suspected it had ceramic coating, then I'm just going to write in my inspection report that further investigation is required by somebody else. Almost past the buck.
Sorry, Tim, I've got a question about silicon anti-fouler.
Oh,
Yeah. I've seen it on a few boats. If it's got, you know, how do you remove it? How do you, if you need to make a repair, you know, around this P bracket or something, is there an approved method? Yeah.
so for our products, there is a repair process, and it's instead of, if we were doing a painted repair with normal paint, we kind of feather out the edge to increase the surface profile or whatever. With silicone coatings, because they won't stick, nothing will stick to them. We almost need to cut out with a nice sharp knife a patch, take that patch back to bare substrate, and then rebuild the whole system. When you rebuild the system, you overlap it slightly. And then once the boat goes in the water, that overlap cannot stick. So it comes off and you get a fairly visible repair to it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If a boat owner had a silicone coating on and they wanted to revert back to a traditional anti-foul because the performance isn't working, the yard refused to lift the boat with silicone coating on it, etc., which they do, then it's a complete removal. And that could be done chemically or mechanically, but scraping is the quickest option. Blasting is not very efficient actually because it bounces off because it's like rubber.
Do you go also just to pick those two chats up, and then I think we need to break this off.
Yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
Are there simple ways to identify oil or a ceramic coating is present on the surface?
Yeah.
If there's oil on the surface, then if you were to clean the surface with detergent, you're looking for the water break, how the water reacts on the surface, and if it doesn't all flow out nicely, then you can suspect there's still contamination on there. Detergent and warm water is the answer for oils and things like that. And to a certain extent, if you get contamination from oils, from teak dust, etc., like that, it's just warm water and detergent before you do any abrasion to the surface, because what you don't want to do is sand that into the surface. Ceramic coating. Can I say watch this space at the moment? Sorry. What's my opinion on polyaspartic coatings? I'm going to return the question to you and say, from what point of view, Brian, where do you want to use them?
What are they?
It's just a different chemistry type to yeah, they've got much they're much more robust, chemical resistant, etc., but you're not going to have the finished quality that you would expect from a polyurethane or something like that.
Any other questions? I'm coming back to you.
Yeah, as fast curing, more stable. Brian, we could talk about this for ages because I've got loads of questions to dig into this. So I'm more than happy for Mike to pass on my contact details, and we can talk about this outside of here, because I think it's going to take more time than we have.
Thanks.
If that's all right with you. But I will answer your question, but slightly later date.
We'll get that all. So Tim, thank you ever so much. Always a pleasure to hear you speak. Yeah, thank you.
There's a technical reference point.
Do you encourage surveyors to contact AkzoNobel technical department with questions or not?
So, the UK sales team are also based from the office in Hedge End, and they do have a technical help desk number. So you can ask Martin Bridge is his name, and the telephone number is 01489 775050. And if he doesn't know the answer, then he'll direct it to one of us and then feedback. But of course, you can always reach out to us. My details are under RMCI on the IMS website as well, so you can reach me through there as well if you want to, and I'll do it directly. But we tend not to be the first point of contact for technical questions, otherwise we'll forget any work done.
And finally, if I can just mention the Yacht Coatings Technical Insights course, which, and thanks to AkzoNobel for the work you guys have done. You know, you've been instrumental in putting that together. It's a 2-day program, it's face-to-face, and it's a scaled down version, I suppose, of the RMCI. So it's for those who need to understand paint, but who don't need to be at that kind of critical inspector level. So watch out, we're running courses all of next year around the UK and Europe. So Tim, thank you very much indeed.
Welcome.
Lovely, thank you. Nice to see you. Okay, I suggest we take a 10-minute coffee break, a little bit behind schedule, but that's fine. See John at the back of the room.